Hello and welcome to my video about representation within This Girl Can, which is a print advert set text at GCSE on the Media Studies Eduqas exam board. There is another video about This Girl Can all about media language, so please check that out because it will help you with this text as well. If This Girl Can comes up as a representation question in Section A, Component 1 of the GCSE exam, then you could get asked about any one of the things on this side of the screen right now. Feel free to pause this if you need more time to look through it. But it will be in comparison to an unseen text. So they will give you another print advert potentially, and you would have to compare and contrast it to this in terms of representation. I can only assume that if representation for this question and this set text comes up in the exam, that it will either be representation of women or gender, or representation of exercise as an issue. Please don't quote me on that or sue me if it doesn't, but they're the two things that most teachers seem to believe would be the potential representation questions if this came up. In This Girl Can, have a think about how she has been represented. Does she seem as though she is perfect or imperfect? Does she seem natural or real or aspirational, beautiful? Does she seem like powerful? Does she seem vulnerable or weak? If you have a look at her clothing, it's brightly coloured and she is in the centre of the image, which does give her a certain element of power. So it does represent her as being quite important. However, her face is turned away from the camera and her body is slightly angled away from us as well. And that kind of suggests that her appearance, or her face at least, is not important, and that perhaps it's more about how she's feeling than anything else. Her hair is wet, seemingly with sweat, and it's kind of all slapped around her face. It's not the perfect hair that you get in most adverts for products. It's hard to tell whether she has any makeup on, but certainly her clothing also has sweat marks as well. This is not your kind of perfect aspirational representation of women that you often see in other adverts. This means she feels more real, perhaps. It feels more of a natural representation to audiences. But it's also been done like this specifically because the people who made the advert, Sport England, found that in their research, women said that one of the reasons they didn't do more exercise was because they were worried about things like sweating, their makeup coming off, their clothes looking dirty. And so they've chosen to represent her like this deliberately in order to show their audience that actually it's okay because you will look like this, but that's all right because you're going to feel great. She is turned away from the camera, and the camera shot itself, the focus is a shallow focus shot, which means that everything behind her is blurry and she's the only one that is sharp and in focus. And this perhaps represents her as being important, but it also represents her as being in her own little world. She doesn't care about anything around her because she's not looking at them. They're not in focus. They're not important to her. The fact that we're seeing her in a medium long shot, so we're seeing just over half of her body, may suggest that we need to be able to see her body to appreciate the advert and its messages. But the fact that the slogan is positioned over her body represents her body as not being important. Normally in adverts, and you will see this if you've seen a lot of other modern adverts, women's bodies are shown as being really important and desirable and often sexualized. And actually she doesn't appear to be sexualized in this advert at all. Her clothes aren't particularly revealing, they're not particularly sexual, and certainly her body language feels more like she's having fun than trying to kind of lure us in with a seductive pose. So if you were looking at maybe a feminist theorist like Van Zunen, who often believes that women are sexualized in the media, this advert challenges quite a lot of those ideas, and that is because the target audience is women. They're trying to show women that looking sexy isn't important, and it's probably not going to happen whilst you're exercising, but that feeling sexy and feeling great is going to be the result. The fact that there are only women in this advert does show women as being quite important, and it does reflect the fact that perhaps women are the target audience for this campaign. So that is why they've given them lots of women to be able to relate to and identify with. So it's not particularly common to underrepresent men and only represent women in media products, but that's reflective of the campaign and why this campaign was started in the first place.